Indiana. This is one that is circled on the calendar in Bloomington and Columbus, a rematch of the Big Ten championship game from a year ago. Indiana, the defending national champions, Kurt Cignetti and Bloomington are the talk of the sport. It was the historically worst program in college football all the way to the top program in college football. Indiana had one of the best stories from a year ago, Fernando Mendoza. He's now off to the NFL. Josh Hoover now takes over at quarterback for the Hoosiers. Grant, this is a big one. This is the biggest home game that Bloomington, Indiana has ever had in its history. They're replacing some lost talent, but so are the Buckeyes. This one is going to be the evaluator for Indiana of how good are they? Can they do it again? Can they sustain what they did a year ago? That doesn't mean 15-0. That doesn't mean 16-0. What that means for Indiana is, can you still compete at the highest level? If Ohio State comes into your building and they win by 3 scores and you say, okay, last year they won the national title. It was cute a year ago. Okay, they were just a year away. They were building towards it. And then, boom, the wheels fall off and you look like flash in the pan. This is Indiana's chance. They don't have to win the game. They just got to be competitive. And they have the pieces to be competitive. They have the pieces to win the game. Indiana could be a real team again this season, but this is that benchmark that says, okay, Ohio State's been the class of the conference. Can you beat them again? Can you beat them at home? This is a massive game for Big Ten implications, for college football playoff implications, and for both programs. Ohio State, you're going to lose to Indiana back-to-back times after winning almost 30 straight. This is the state of college football now. It's a lot is settling on this game. And Josh Hoover, what's he going to look like in this Indiana offense? Kurt Cignetti, how's he going to motivate a program that just accomplished what they said they were going to accomplish? They did it. They checked the box. And now you're going to go back and do it again. And they can. And Kurt Cignetti is a great coach. But what's it going to look like? This is that first moment where we see what it's going to look like for the Hoosiers, Grant. What do you see when you look at the 2026 Indiana football team?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people expect them to be a really good team again. It's, Pick Six preview has them top 10 again, preseason. So I don't think a lot of experts expect Indiana to just go away after, what we just witnessed last year. Certainly not with Cignetti at the helm. Josh Hoover comes in from TCU. He is the active leader in yards, 9,627 yards, and in touchdowns with 71 TDs. So they lose Mendoza. They bring in an insanely experienced and talented very experienced quarterback that Cignetti, loves that type of quarterback. This guy that's been through it all. He's been in all kinds of situations. He can coach them through any kind of game plan. I think he's got that recipe again with Hoover. And then, they added Tulane's number 1 wide receiver with Shaz Preston, as well as Nick Marsh from Michigan State, another really good wide receiver. And they're going to bring back Charlie Becker. We all remember what he could do with, one-on-one jump balls last year. So, just on the offensive side alone, they brought in a guy from Boston College who's going to supplement their third stringer from last year at running back. So, you can kind of see their blueprint from last year kind of coming to fruition again. Like you said, is it going to be an undefeated national championship season? I don't know. That was incredible. That was insane. Mendoza was a special athlete and special human being. Who knows if that can be replicated again? But this is going to be a really good team. Indiana is probably going to be a top 10 team again. They're going to be in the playoff mix again. Whether or not they beat Ohio State, I've been back and forth on this for a while. The optics of Ohio State losing back-to-back matchups against Indiana it's pretty surreal. But you can't look at last year and look at what they've done this offseason and discount the possibility. So, this is a tough one. It's going to be an incredible game.
Yeah, and Grant, you said it, the optics of Ohio State losing twice, but you don't make picks off of optics. It's like this is a reality that this new world of college football has created. Ohio State could, after just winning 30 straight games against one program, lose 2 in a row to Indiana. And if you told yourself that 10 years ago, if you said, hey, guess what? 2016 self, Indiana's going to beat Ohio State 2 years in a row and they're going to win a national championship while doing it, you'd be like, what did you have for dinner earlier?
Which edition of EA College Football was that on? Yeah.
Right, exactly. So are you playing Dynasty mode or where are we?
It's a Road to Glory.
Exactly. Like those are the things that you'd think. But this new world of college football has given these opportunities for these programs to do it. And Curt Cignetti has the blueprint. That's the standard of how you do a rebuild, is what Curt Cignetti just did in Bloomington. And you have to respect him for it. You have to tip your cap for it. It was outstanding to watch. Just a storyline as a college football fan, what Indiana was able to do last year was special. That run was special. But now you got to come back and do it again. You got to come back to reality. Is there going to be a national championship hangover? Now you're playing this game in mid-October, so that shouldn't really last by then. But Grand Ohio State is bringing back 4 offensive linemen. Guess what? So is Indiana. And they were mauling teams in the college football playoff last year, and they handled Ohio State pretty well in the Big Ten title game. This is a rematch. Like we said, it was 13-10, not a lot of offense, but points were definitely left on the field for both teams. Which offensive line is going to have its way in this game? Which defensive line is going to have its way in this game? Because if you are Ohio State and you look across the field, you lost the line of scrimmage in both places in the Big Ten championship game. So when I see both teams returning 4 offensive linemen, I'm like, you know what? That right there is the matchup that I'm going to watch. Sure, Julian saying Josh Hoover, I get it. Charlie Becker, Jeremiah Smith. Okay, we're not going to compare those two because Jeremiah Smith is the better player. But the offensive line and the defensive line, that to me is the matchup that we've got to watch. And then you're returning your tackle duo of Tyreek Tucker and Mario Landino on that defensive line. Can Ohio State run the football inside? This is the matchup to watch. It's in the trenches again. Any big game for Ohio State, the trenches will be the indicator. You don't want to have fool's gold where you're watching and saying, okay, they're beating these teams. Ohio State was 12-0 last year, but they couldn't hold their own at the line of scrimmage when it mattered most. That is how Ohio State gets back to winning the Big Ten or winning a national championship this season, or both. They've got to win the battle in the trenches. So, Grant, when you see this game, biggest home game in Indiana football history, Ohio State's coming to town. Potentially an undefeated showdown, potentially a top 5 matchup. We both have Ohio State with a loss already. What do you see in this matchup between the Buckeyes and the Hoosiers?
I think the difference, like you said, in the trenches, specifically Ohio State's offensive line, I have got to think that Ryan Day and Arthur Smith and that whole line, honestly, have gone through that game, countless times and looked at what Indiana did to them, because Indiana aided Miami in beating Ohio State by showing that tape. There is, there were, the cat was out of the bag by the time they played Miami because of the way that Cignetti was able to expose them. I would like to think that an entire offseason of that and preparation for that gives Ohio State the edge to be able to pull out the win in Bloomington. Obviously, this is predicated on the improvement of the offensive line, but I think the experience coming back and Bowen having more time with the line and Arthur Smith and so on and so forth, I think Ohio State gains that edge back and gets back in the win column against Indiana. But it's going to be razor thin, I think.
Yeah, tight game here in Bloomington on Grant's pick. And Grant, I'm with you on this. I do think that Ohio State right now is my pick to win this game in Bloomington. So I think Ohio State, again, improves here to 6-1. I think that they're going to find a way to beat the Hoosiers. I think Julian Sand is going to have a bounce-back game. And this game's going to mean a lot, especially to the offensive line.
Yes.
Those guys are returning. They take pride in that position. They take pride in being a Buckeye, and they know that they got bullied. I get it. Texas is a huge game. I get it. Oregon is a big game. This is not in the same class as the Michigan game. I won't even pretend. But when you see those 3 big games, this offensive line circled that Indiana game because of what happened and how it happened. They want that chance. And I think that's the game where I expect Ohio State's offensive line to be at its best, and it needs to be at its best to beat Indiana, and I think that they do. So I will take Ohio State to win that game as well.